Hello and welcome to Kanesidder This. Today my special guest is Shane Hamlin, who was a castmate of mine in Shakespeare in Hollywood at ICT, main stage. And today we're going to be talking about By the Way, Meet Vera Stark, currently in performances at Theater 3 through July 13th, Sunday, July 13th. Shane, welcome.
Thank you very much. We had a wonderful time seeing the show, and I'm looking forward to helping out with this podcast. And when he said special friend, you know...
Well, I didn't say special friend. I mean, that implies we have a romantic relationship, and while you are a very handsome man...
And you too.
Well, why, thank you, sir. I do believe that at this present time we are platonic friends, which is special. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
it's special. Anyway, about the... I totally interrupted you. About the play at hand. By the Way, Vera Stark is written by Lynn Nottage, and I think it's making the rounds of the regional theaters now after its recent New York performance, because it's an interesting, different kind of play, isn't it?
Yes, we were talking earlier over dinner about Snuffers. Can we say Snuffers?
Yes, of course. Sure.
Yeah, we had cheese fries. They were
Snuffers
good.
would be a great sponsor for this podcast.
About how Theater 3 takes chances with scripts, and I love that they do that. And you know, some of them are hits, some of them misses, but I think this is mostly a hit. And go ahead.
Well, first of all, the performances or the performers, by and large, were some of the best you could get in Dallas.
Agreed.
Incredible performances.
Yep.
And it's directed by Bruce Coleman, who's directed at just about every theater in town.
I love you, Bruce.
Yes, Bruce is pretty awesome. And it's the play is about a woman who I'd never heard of before. This play before I heard of this play, and her name is Vera Stark. And back in what is the date? When did the Belle of New Orleans come out?
We should have had that at hand, shouldn't we?
We should have. I thought it said somewhere here when it came out. Oh, it's in here.
It is. Well, I have to say, while we're looking it up,
yes.
I really, really appreciate historical pieces.
I do too.
And this really does take you back. In the first act is just wonderful. It takes you back, and all the actors do a great job of taking you there. And I actually went into the play not knowing that it was historically accurate, and it's amazing.
Well, it was the 1930s, so it's around about the same time that Shakespeare in Hollywood takes place. A little bit before, because it was pre-code Hollywood.
Right, yes.
They talk about the fact that Lee Jamieson, as the white actress, or octoroon in the movie, The Belle of New Orleans, she has a very intimate friendship with Vera Stark, played by Yolanda Williams, which is evidently pre-code, because after the code happened and there were all kinds of restrictions put on motion pictures, you would not have a white and a black actress that would have this sort of a very intimate friendship.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And there's some very interesting societal things that are brought into the play, such as the two African-American actresses, Vera Stark, because they actually play actresses as well as maids, actually playing maids in the play. They talk about how they only either play maids or slaves whenever they're cast in films.
Right.
And Yolanda Williams and Stormy Demerson, who are roommates and compatriots in Hollywood of the 1930s, they are struggling to try to break in to any kind of a role that is not the stereotypical African-American slave. It was very funny to watch them parody those
yes,
performances.
They did a great job.
Excellent. And both of them have wonderful singing voices as well.
Yeah,
Even though this is a play, not a musical.
You really got the idea that they were desperately looking for that dramatic role that they deserved to have.
Right. And I remember hearing Hattie McDaniels from Gone with the Wind, who played Mammy. There was a lot of controversy about her performance at the time, because she was nominated, won an Oscar for it, but it was that stereotypical slave, that was talking to the missus, and so this is sort of a mirroring of that, talking about the two characters. Vera Stark is the maid to America's sweetie pie, Gloria. I keep wanting to say Gloria Swanson. Gloria Mitchell, who's played by Lee Jamieson, and
she does a wonderful job. Amazing.
Of course,
she's perfect.
At the beginning of the play, we find out that Gloria is being coached on her lines for an audition by Vera Stark, and Vera is trying to hint to Gloria that she also would like to audition for this film, The Belle of New Orleans. And later on, whenever we meet the producer, played by Paul J. Williams, he says that one of his rules for this is that the character can never mention that she's black. She could say she's an octoroon, but she can't look black, and because she's the lead in the movie, she cannot be black. That's just something that could not happen in 1930s Hollywood, which is crazy.
It is crazy to think about.
It's not that long ago.
Yeah, well, the Civil War wasn't that long ago.
That's true. Well, and in a lot of ways, the Civil War. I mean, go to, what was it, Mississippi, that just ratified the amendment to the Constitution that freed the slaves about 3 months ago, which is crazy.
It makes a great political statement. I mean, there is still a lot of racism in this country, so
absolutely,
shows like this really are helpful.
And it's nice to see what they have. No, I say nice. It's interesting to see what they went through, because we'll never know that kind of a struggle. And to see these two ladies who are very strong, jovial characters who are dealing with it, not in a way where, we're such victims, we're so victimized by this society. They're like, this is the reality. We will break through it. We'll figure out how to break through it. But we also want to work. And I know that frustration as a performer as well.
Stormy Demerson and Yolanda Williams were wonderful in the first act portraying those characters.
The scenes that they had when they were alone on stage, both in the
magical.
Just because there's several scenes that they have. There's one in the apartment, and then there's one in Gloria's sitting room or whatever it is of her luscious apartment, beautifully furnished apartment. Just great performances. But I hate saying that. I say that over and over again. Just great performances. What's interesting is that the second act of the play is troublesome. The second act is a giant leap forward in time. I don't want to give everything away. It's a giant leap forward in time, and it includes flashbacks, but the tone of the play in the first act, it was so interesting and so fascinating to watch. And there was such a tonal shift to the second act. It almost seemed like the actors were either directed to or sort of as a group. There's that group effect that happens in a play, whether it's conscious or unconscious. There seemed to just be a bit of a jolt to the acting style that I didn't feel was necessary.
Yeah, I think we both agree on that.
I think that they might have been better served by playing it a little more naturalistic, a little more realistic in the second act. But it's interesting because we get a historical context sort of in a current group of people looking back on the 30s and how things were different. And we mentioned the video and photo stuff that was done by Rich.
Rich was wonderful.
Oh my God.
Wonderful work.
I always mispronounce his last name. Froelich or Froelich?
I say Froelich, but maybe that's wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, Rich, we apologize. Please feel free to correct us. But whenever you go into the theater, before the show even starts, you see the slideshow of all of the African-American actors and actresses over the years, not composers and all these influential people, from Sidney Poitier to Quincy Jones to Richard Roundtree, seeing sort of this is the history, this is what was forged, this is the long, hard-fought struggle that they had to get recognition in Hollywood. And it really reinforced the fact that here was this woman in the 1930s, the golden age of Hollywood, who was determined to make a name for herself and to be successful in her chosen field. Then we also have the juxtaposition of Raven's character. What is Raven's like? Raven
Garcia,
who played
Anna May and
it was Anna May, but what was her
second act?
What was her Brazilian name? She comes up with
that's right.
She's masquerading as a Brazilian because she's of a fairer complexion than Vera or what is. I'm just going to keep this open to the cast. I'm horrible about this. Than Lottie or Vera. Right. She's got a much lighter complexion, so she's passing as Brazilian instead of African American, and oh boy, do the men in Hollywood eat that up. They love it. And you see the lengths to which she's willing to go. And Vera and Lottie are dead set against taking that tack. They're going to do it by the strengths of their talents. Mm-hmm. And you see the younger person who's just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice juxtaposition to see that.
Yes, and Raven did a good job in that role.
Yes. And I have to say, Yolanda Williams as Vera Stark. I don't know if I've seen Yolanda in anything else.
Me neither.
But man, was it a pleasure to watch her in the show. Mm-hmm. She completely inhabited that character. And in the second act, when she's sort of the dancing puppet. She's like, get out here and perform the way you're supposed to perform. She's doing kind of a lounge singer type act. Mm-hmm. And you see that's the parody of herself that she's been forced into in the 1970s. At first it was a little jarring because you knew that she had more talent than this. And then it kind of shifts into gear and you realize, this is because this is what's expected. This is what you're supposed to just do what you're supposed to do rather than try to rock the boat and be your own kind of individual. I'm
sure it was very hard for her, for the actual Vera Stark to go through that.
I'm sure. The thing that I found interesting in researching this, and we get a sense of this in the play as well, but Vera Stark did disappear mysteriously all of a sudden. And no one to this day seems to know why she disappeared. And we have people in the second act that just know this is why she disappeared. No, this is why she disappeared. And people have written very decisive answers to that question, but they have absolutely no proof with it. And she has a husband, which we have not mentioned Calvin Roberts yet.
Oh, yes. We should not go without mentioning him. He was wonderful.
I missed Calvin in Spunk, and I've heard that he was fantastic at Water Tower Theater in Spunk. But I have to say, his scenes with Vera in the first act were heartbreakingly just honest, and I say heartbreakingly, but they were also very warm and tender, and you saw a budding romance that, this is history, I'm not really spoiling anything, that he loses his temper one night at a heckler in a jazz bar. He plays a trumpeter and accidentally beats someone to death with his trumpet and is sent to prison. So her first husband was sent to prison.
Yes. It's mentioned in the play. It's mentioned in the play, and so it's very interesting that...
Yeah. But it's almost kind of glossed over in the play. It's not a major plot point, but in reality, it actually happened.
Right.
And again, part of the struggles of an African American performer of sorts in the 30s and 40s and 50s. But Calvin just really, really lost himself, I think, in that role. I know Calvin, and I was really impressed by that performance.
Very good.
And the other two people that we haven't mentioned yet.
Lee Jameson.
No, we mentioned Lee, please. We always talk about Lee.
Oh, sorry.
No, we didn't mention Paul J. Williams, who cracked me up. We had Jack Warner in our play. And in this play, you've got Mr. Slavsvik, who's the producer of the movie. And he just wants to get away from this party. He wants to take a nap. But then the ladies walk in and he's like, oh, hello, who's this? love that character. It was such a almost.
It was very good.
Almost a cameo in the first act.
Yes, very honest.
It was so much fun to watch.
Yes.
Even whenever he wasn't the focus of the scene, it was hilarious to see what was going on with him. And then the German director, or actually a Russian director, as opposed to my Austrian director that I played in Shakespeare in Hollywood, Aaron Roberts, comes in, and I don't want to ruin it, but in the second act, plays a role almost unrecognizable from the first act.
Yeah.
But also, just like with Max Reinhardt, he is determined to have artistic integrity in his movie. And the producer's like, "Oy vey, do you have to be so real with this? Can't we just I want singing and dancing. I want romance." And he just wants to show, he wants to show the angst and the heartbreak. So the first act has such cleverly drawn characters.
Yes.
That it's kind of jarring in that second act to get, I want to say, not quite caricature, but bordering on almost more of a stereotype than the characters in the first act, which is very odd.
Indeed.
What else do you want to say? I'm monopolizing. I'm monologuing.
I'd like to mention again the sound video design.
Oh, brilliant!
Rich was very good.
There's more than just the photos that I talked about, the slideshow.
Yes.
There's something much more intricate that we see.
Quite a bit of video. Yeah. Very well done and dated well. And
yes.
Yeah, well done. Very well done.
And also the scene painting. David Walsh, who's listed as the scene painter. Usually Bruce does just about everything. He does costumes,
right.
He paints the set, he does everything. So I don't know how involved he was in this. But I loved the patterns on the floor and on the furniture that was brought in. Oh, do you want to talk about the scene changes, or do you want me to? Because I'm talking about everything.
Yeah. The scene changes were well done.
Integral.
Yes, and it helped with that Rich, put in a bunch of slides and different little pieces of video while those were taking place, and they did it kind of like a set of a movie, and they would move things in, and action, ready to go.
Right, it was fun.
Yeah.
What usually is a very tedious thing for an audience to watch a scene change, they costumed the crew and stage manager in period dress, and things are rolled on and off with carts that you would see on a movie set or a stage set, which is really great.
They did great. I would, even though we're both in agreement that the second act is a little bit wonky, I would still highly recommend the show.
To see the performances that these actors give under Bruce's direction, really, it's worth the price of admission. And afterwards, we went to Two Corks in a Bottle, which also would be a wonderful sponsor for this podcast. We went to Two Corks in a Bottle afterwards, and even before this woman knew that we were with one of the actors, she came over to us because she knew that we were at the play and wanted to talk to us about how wonderful the play was and
she was so drunk.
Oh, yeah, she was. But she was just rhapsodizing about how much she loved the play, and she's seen so many shows at Theater 3, and this was just one of her favorites. So the audience is enjoying it. And there were times, there was a woman sitting to our left in the south section who once or twice, she laughed so hard you could tell she lost herself in that laugh. She was not planning on laughing that loud. And there were times whenever I was chuckling long after something happened because it was just so freaking hilarious. When Lee bounds on in that second or third scene, and she's worried about her performance at a party where the director is, and I just love it so much. Yeah. The energy that she had. So it's a really fun play. It's an historical play, but it's also a very modern play as well. So it's not like watching something that was written in the 1920s or 30s. It's definitely with a modern perspective and from a modern eye. Lynn Nottage she got a graduate degree in playwriting from Yale and was only the second African-American woman to do that, which also speaks to the history that is presented in this show and where we've come from, where we are right now, where we could possibly be headed. as a society.
You can tell it was a very a labor of love for her. This play
Absolutely.
was, and was very near and dear to her heart. And go ahead.
She's also, Lynn Nottage also has written Civil War Christmas, which is going to be at Theater 3 November 20th through December 14th, which is, well, actually, Civil War Christmas is written by Paula Vogel, who studied with Lynn Nottage at the same time. That's a little confusing in the notes here.
So you want to audition?
What?
You want to audition?
Of course. I mean, it sounds like fun. But yeah, Paula Vogel is another female playwright who writes about something in a modern way, even though it takes place in the past. There's a play, How I Learned to Drive. I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
No.
But it's about a young woman. Mary Louise Parker did it on Broadway, or off Broadway. About a young woman who is taught to drive by her uncle, who had an inappropriate contact with her. And it touches on that kind of a thing in a very different way. It's very modern, but also brings in the history of how this has happened for generations and families. And so there's a lot of similarity between the two women's playwriting styles. I don't know that I've ever seen anything else that Lynn Nottage has done, but I would be very, very interested in seeing some of her other stuff, because it sounds... I like her voice. I like her voice as a playwright.
Yes, I'm looking forward to seeing the Civil War Christmas. Definitely.
Yeah, which is Paula Vogel. I keep getting that confused. It's not Lynn Nottage, it's Paula Vogel. So, the play is called By the Way, Meet Vera Stark. It's very interesting. It's challenging, which, as you said, is great to see Theater 3 do shows like this. Mm-hmm. And it runs through Sunday, July 13th. You still have time to get tickets. The information for how to get tickets will be up on the screen for this podcast, and you'll find a link within the actual review page on my Examiner site and on my YouTube page. So, thank you very much, Shane. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for letting me do this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. I love having people who aren't afraid to be honest and yet constructive. So I like that. Yeah. Thanks a lot. All right, man.
Yes, it was
Talk to you
fun.
soon.
Let's do it.